On this episode of the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast, we'll be discussing one of Prince's most enduring B-sides, She's Always in My Hair. She's Always in My Hair is the B-side to Raspberry Beret and our lyrical focus for this episode. Joining me to parse through the lyrics is Leslie Ballard. Welcome back to the show, Leslie.
Thanks, Jason. It's good to be back.
Good to have you. Good to have you. As always, we collaborated last on The Beautiful Ones, which was another beloved song that was a non-single from the Purple Rain album. And, before that, we did All the Critics Love You in New York. So we've done quite a nice variety of songs so far, I would say.
Yes, good ones.
What, in particular with this song, She's Always in My Hair, being the B-side to the biggest hit song off of Around the World in a Day album, did you have any recollection of this song when it was initially released? Or when did you become familiar with She's Always in My Hair?
I first became familiar with it on the hits and the B-sides. I was a little bit young when it originally released to have, picked up the first time. I had Around the World in a Day on tape. I didn't have the singles when they came out, so I didn't originally have this tune. I think I recall maybe my babysitter's daughter playing it or something like that, but I didn't own the single myself. And then when hits and B-sides came out, I was like, wow, what a cool track. Mm-hmm. It was different. Didn't sound like anything else except maybe one little riff from Sex Shooter. Sounded super familiar, but the rest of it was new to me at that time.
Yeah, wow, that's pretty much identical to my experience with the song as well. Having had Around the World in a Day on cassette, I never really bought 45s. It was my older sister that bought them. So that's how I knew the B-side to 1999 with How Come You Don't Call Me Anymore, because she had the 1999 45. But by 1985, it was cassettes. It was recording songs off the radio. So she wasn't buying 45s. I wasn't buying 45s. So I wasn't really privy to this song until the hits and the B-sides collection came out in 93. And really that collection opened my eyes to a lot. I wasn't familiar with really anything pre-1999 until that collection. All these B-sides were kind of opened up to me as some things or songs that I wasn't familiar with, and realized that I was missing in my life, basically. And it was an amazing collection, and this is an amazing song. And you touched on the Sex Shooter kind of almost like a sample, I guess, because I was trying to do the timing in my head in preparation for this episode, because She's Always in My Hair was recorded at the tail end of 83.
Right.
And I'm like, well, by that time, Purple Rain movie would have already wrapped filming. Because, by that time they were starting to get into post-production, and, Prince would have to record a couple more songs to fit montage scenes like When Doves Cry and Take Me With You. But all the filming of the movie was done. And of course, we all know, anybody who's familiar with the movie, Sex Shooter's in the movie. So it would have had to have been done by late December of 83, right? It's a very minor part of it, but it's in the song, and it's memorable because it kind of it has that interesting synth line that just gets stuck in your brain. At least it does for me. I mean, that's just such a iconic aspect of this song, I feel. Do you agree with that?
Definitely. I do. And I think, to put kind of a precise point on what you were saying, I think Sex Shooter, the original initial tracking was in April of 83, March or April, and this would have been December. So yeah, I mean, definitely the order makes sense, and he must have really liked that riff.
yeah, maybe Sex Shooter was kind of, I mean, I think the version of it that's used for Sex Shooters maybe sped up a little bit, or it's faster, just slightly faster. This is a little more laid back, it feels, which kind of, matches the vibe of the song.
Right.
This is an upbeat song, but it's not like fast and really danceable like Sex Shooter is. So it's a little more mid-tempo, I guess. But yeah, I love this song. It wasn't a song I knew for many years after it was released, so I was just happy to have had it at some point in my life. And in terms of like other versions of this song, there's the 12-inch new mix version, which is also found, of course, on the 12-inch recording of Raspberry Beret. I think She's Always in My Hair was the B-side to Paisley Park in other countries, if I recall correctly.
UK, I think, maybe.
Yeah, because that was the lead single elsewhere in the world. And for whatever reason, it was, determined that She's Always in My Hair was going to be the B-side to whatever lead single was going to come off of Around the World in a Day. And so in the United States, it was Raspberry Beret. In the UK, it was Paisley Park. But they all got it at some point, just on different A-sides.
Right.
And then I guess there's another version that was recorded, according to Prince Vault, in August of '84, but that was scrapped. And we never really got that version.
Yeah, there's Dwayne Tudall's Purple Rain studio sessions book talks about that one and the tracking of it, and yeah, he did, I guess, decide to go with the original version. It'd be great to hear the later version. At least
Yeah.
I'd like to.
Oh no, I think a lot of us would for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know, with all these deluxe box sets coming out over the past 2-3 years, you kind of just start to think of songs that would make sense to be put on these types of box sets, and just hope someday when the estate gets around to releasing, or they're gonna put songs like this, songs that have kind of always had like this, or have like this mysterious aura about them, knowing they exist, knowing that they probably sound pretty cool, but for whatever reason weren't chosen for release, or the idea was completely scrapped for basically the original version. Like, you redid it, Prince redid it, and must have like listened to both versions and thought, well, I like my original version better,
Mm-hmm.
so we're gonna stick with that, and this other version is gonna go back in the vault, which is fine. It's just be nice to hear, because we're greedy Prince fans, so
Exactly.
we want to hear it all. Yeah, and just this another, I think, just notable kind of interesting tidbit about the recording of this song, that from a timing standpoint, is he was very prolific around this time. We all know that. It's been well documented. His ability to just record song after song after song, and really some of his most well-known songs came from this era, all like in this few months of late '83, early '84, and I guess he had recorded Erotic City around this time as well, as he was recording She's Always in My Hair, and We Can Funk, whatever version you want to call it, was
Right.
also recorded around that. So two like kind of really dirty songs, and then you got like this sweet kind of thank you song. So just goes to show Prince can, he can turn his mind when he's writing a song, and be really focused on one aspect of his songwriting and one aspect of his personality, and then the next day like put that all aside. It's like, yeah, I've been recording some really raunchy songs lately, but this song is something I want to get out right now, and it tells a completely different story with completely different intentions. So I thought that was kind of interesting, doing those two songs and then She's Always in My Hair right around the same time.
Yeah, and I think maybe Baby Nose was around the same time. Next Time Wipe the Lipstick Off Your Collar.
Mhm.
Seems like was in one of those, end of '83 kind of New Year's Eve-ish time frame.
Yeah. Songs for himself, songs for others, songs for, I don't know, the vault. I mean,
Right.
songs for decades in the future. Very interesting indeed. So, like, when I think of this song, when I think of She's Always in My Hair, one thing that kind of popped into my head, it almost feels a little bit like This is Prince's version of "Thank You for Being a Friend," the theme song from the Golden Girls. I kind of get a little "Thank you for being a friend" or "Thank you for being my friend" kind of vibe from the lyrics of the song, not from the how it sounds, of course,
Sure.
but just like the theme and kind of like what its intent is. And for me, this song feels just like a thank you note, like a instead of like a thank you note, like a thank you card, Hallmark card. Somebody buys it and says, "I just wanted to thank you for sticking with me and thank you for being you." Just to have a kind of like a sweet sentiment that you give a really good friend of yours. Prince writes a song, and I just thought like which came first. I always forget how old the Golden Girls is, and this song came first. So I'm gonna say that the Golden Girls ripped off Prince
Sure.
with their "Thank You for Being a Friend" song.
Let's go with that.
So like, what are your like just overarching thoughts about this song before we start getting into the lyrics? I mean, do you kind of feel like it's a thank you song, or you get something different out of it?
It depends on the day. I've had a lot of conversations about this song with people over the years, and um, I think, when I first heard it, I heard it exactly like you're describing. Oh, how sweet! He's thanking this woman, for being there and being so positive, even when things aren't going so well. And then I started thinking about the phrase, that when something's in your hair, right?
Hmm.
Um, and it almost has sort of an annoying, bothersome connotation to it too. And so I started seeing it two ways. Like, yeah, she's always there. She's wonderful. She, tells me these great things, but she's always in my hair, right? Kind of two sides of that coin. So I hear it both ways now, almost at the same time. Um, and I think part of that, I might be projecting some of my life experience on it too, because, I've had relationships in the past that were kind of similar to that, I did everything right. I was positive all the time. And it was kind of like, yeah, well, I want to do something else. That's not exactly what I need right now. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if I'm projecting there, but it doesn't sound or feel entirely positive to me. Maybe mostly, but there's still that thread for me
Yeah,
at least.
yeah. Well, I think about the phrase "she's always in my hair," as you mentioned. It's first of all, it's not a phrase that I've ever really used personally, and it's not a phrase that I've heard used a lot to describe somebody or their relationship to somebody else. You kind of hear somebody getting under your skin,
Hmm.
and that kind of it doesn't mean the exact same thing. I mean, getting under somebody's skin means like kind of bothersome, and they really bother that person to the point where that it's hard to focus. It's hard to get them out of their head, and there's very clear negative connotations with saying somebody's getting under their skin. That's a negative phrase. She's always in my hair. To your point, if something gets in your hair, you usually try to get it out. I mean, it's not typically a pleasant experience. Something in your hair that's not meant to be in there, you try to get it out. If it's a bug or some piece of debris from wherever flies into your hair, your instinct is to dig in there and grab it and pull it out because it's not meant to be there. And so "she's always in my hair" doesn't sound like necessarily the way it's described, just with that phrase as a really positive thing. Now, could it also be another way of saying like "she's always in my head"? And just kind of an interesting way of saying that because they're very similar phrases, and even the last word of the phrase starts with the same letter and has the same number of letters in the word, but it's different. I mean, it's not identical. And I think there must have been a song earlier where he says something like that, and I always thought he said "always in my head." After hearing this song, like, does he say "in my hair"? Because they just sound so similar to me. Like the phonetics of them are so similar, and "in your head" almost makes it sound like they're getting into your head to the point where your own thoughts are no longer your own anymore. Like you can't differentiate between your own thoughts and their thoughts because they've just become so intermingled in your brain that that's a problem. I mean, if somebody's in your head so much that you can't even tell what are your original thoughts and what are their thoughts that have been implanted in your brain anymore, then maybe that's time to step back. So I do get what you're saying with maybe some parts of the song, or at least some of the tone of the song can be perceived as a little bit bothersome or negative in some ways. The verses don't really indicate that though, and so that's why it's very easily to interpret the song as being a thank you note or a positivity type, acceptance of somebody's in their life as being as a positive, because the verses really reinforce that, I feel. So it's interesting, I guess, is what I'm trying to say there. So
the phrase in someone's hair, when I remember hearing it in the past, it's in the connotation of whatever or whoever is doing this is impeding my productivity. Right? Like, I think of adults when I was a child. Oh, you kids are in my hair. Right? Mm-hmm. Like you're getting in the way. And so when I hear this, I don't hear it as a negative statement against the person that it's about, but rather, you being in my mind is so distracting, I can't get things done. Right? More along those lines.
Yeah.
But yep.
I think as we start going through the verses here, and I'll read the first verse, people who are listening to the song and listening to the show will kind of understand why we're a little bit at odds about, the chorus and the phrase, she's always in my hair, versus what is being sung about leading up to that. Because the first verse goes, whenever I feel like giving up, whenever my sunshine turns to rain, whenever my hopes and dreams are aimed in the wrong direction, she's always there, telling me how much she cares. She's always in my hair. So if you just read that verse, you're thinking, okay, this is a person who is in my corner. It's somebody who has that confidence and really trying to build somebody up who's feeling down. I mean, Prince is showing some vulnerability here. He's, exhibits a level of vulnerability that he doesn't often do. A lot of his vulnerability in early songs have been related to relationships or, his love life. Not so much about just in general things that, his hopes and dreams or, wanting to achieve whatever it is that he's trying to achieve. It's always kind of come across that he's been very confident in that and very self-assured in knowing what he wants, going after what he wants, and succeeding in getting that because he puts in the time and the effort and the work and has the work ethic to get there. But this is him really showing vulnerability and showing some self-doubt and needing somebody else to prop him back up a bit and get him back on the right path. And it's just something that you just don't hear a lot. At least, up until this point, you don't hear this a lot in Prince's songs.
No, I think you're right. One thing that stands out to me in this verse is the fact that, when he says, whenever my hopes and dreams are aimed in the wrong direction, what he doesn't say is, she points me in a different direction. Right? She doesn't redirect or try to correct. She's just there, showing support. Right? And that's always kind of stood out to me too. And it makes me laugh a little bit because if you read any of the accounts of, the genesis of the song, who it's about, and that sort of thing, Jill strikes me as the type of person that would challenge him. I hope she listens to this at some point. I mean that in all affection. It does, she does seem like the type that would have challenged convention with him. But this verse is highlighting, she's there for me. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, in case it wasn't clear to anybody listening, it is widely believed that this song is written about Prince's friend and protege at the time and part-time lover, Jill Jones. So Jill Jones was a backup singer for Tina Marie. Prince met her years before, like in the very early 80s, and kind of recruited her to join his camp and be a part of his musical successes and evolution as he started to build additional groups like The Time and Vanity Six. So he didn't have her earmarked for Vanity Six. That already had 3 members, and she wasn't there for that. But most people's first, there's really 2 really kind of iconic moments for Jill Jones in the Prince sphere. And the first one would be the music video for 1999. She was a co-singer on that along with Lisa Coleman and Des Dickerson. And she's in the music video, blonde hair. She's got the hat on and the glasses and, looking really cool. And that's probably that's a lot of people's first, vision of Jill Jones. And then we see her again, of course, in the Purple Rain movie. She plays the waitress that, lets Apollonia in, and she has like this unrequited crush on Prince's character, the kid, throughout the movie. Her character arc in that film, maybe it was probably a lot of that was left on the cutting room floor from what I've read. There was probably more for her to say and do in that movie, but she still left a mark. I mean, it's still a memorable character, and she left her mark on that film. But where her mark is really left with is her vocal ability. She's a very talented singer, very strong singer, and she vocalized a lot on the 1999 album. Her vocals are all over various proteges albums as well, especially some of the albums the singers weren't the strongest. They needed some background singers to kind of make them sound a little more pumped up and a little more professional. Jill was there to provide that, and often uncredited in that as well. We see Jill again later in the 80s with the solo album, self-titled solo album that had been in the works for years. Finally saw the light of day in 1987 on the Paisley Park label. It's a brilliant album, widely considered one of the better, or if not the best, protege album of the 80s for sure. And then really kind of the last thing we see of Jill in the Prince world is in the movie Graffiti Bridge. And then after that, I think, I'm not going to speculate too much, but from what I've read, the 2 of them had a little bit of a falling out, and we didn't see much of Jill in Prince's music or in his videos or on the liner notes or anything. There was never a follow-up Jill Jones album on Paisley Park label or NPG label. So that's who this song is supposed to be about, basically. Prince is thanking this woman who's been a part of his life at this point for a couple years and really just always there, living, in Minneapolis and Twin Cities. It's not where she's from, but she lived up there during the recordings of 1999 and Purple Rain, and really just being that kind of all-star off the bench, like you've got this person on your bench, basically. She was on the bench. She wasn't in a band. She wasn't, a member of the Revolution technically, but you can call on her to hit a home run, basically a designated hitter. That's the analogy I'm looking for.
Right.
Like a really strong designated hitter for a baseball analogy, where you don't need her for everyday use, but when you do need her, she needs to get a hit, and she needs to come through with a big splash. And she was the unsung hero, I would say, would be one way to kind of describe her contributions.
I completely agree. I wanted to say too that I think my favorite, fairly recent discovery, just simply because I was too young when it first came out, regarding Jill, is her appearance in the video for Automatic.
Yes, that's awesome.
Absolutely love it. But yes, to your point, her vocal ability is incredible. Her solo album, for anyone who doesn't have a copy of it or hasn't heard it, try. I hope it gets re-released at some point. It's incredible. She's super talented.
Right, she is, but she has a very strong personality, and
Yes.
anybody who follows Jill on social media will catch wind of that right away. And so I think, like, and she's done interviews where she's kind of expressed, like, maybe sometimes her strong personality rubbed people the wrong way, or was perceived as something that it really wasn't. But I think Prince trusted her opinion. I don't have any reason to believe otherwise, but I also don't have any proof of this. But I would say, like, considering that he kept her around as a confidant and a friend as long as he did, tells me that he trusted her. Prince was not the type of person, I don't think, to keep people around that he didn't trust.
Right.
And so the fact that she was with him as a friend, but more importantly as kind of like almost like a musical muse at times, and somebody whose opinion he really valued in addition to her talent. And she's kind of like a no bullshit type of friend. People have those friends that you ask questions, the tough questions to, because they know that they're going to give you a really honest answer. Even if it's not the answer you necessarily want to hear, they're not going to sugarcoat their answer. They're not going to tell you what you want to hear if it isn't the right thing. And Jill always kind of comes across in her interviews, and anytime I've seen her speak, as that type of person. And I imagine she was that type of person for Prince back in the 80s.
Definitely. Speaking her mind, sharing what she felt, but also the thread of this song, loyalty. She was there when things weren't going well, right?
Yeah, loyalty, big time. Yep. Yeah, and you're right. I mean, with this first verse, he's talking about all these things that he's feeling that are, not so great. He wants to give up. It's a rainy day, emotionally, like things are not happening for him, like hopes and dreams aimed in the wrong direction. And you're right. He doesn't say she gets him on the right path. She's just there and tells him how much she cares. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's what the person needs. Right. They don't necessarily need another person to get in their head and talk to them about what's right and what's wrong and what they need to do in order to change their career path or make the right decision. Sometimes that person just needs to figure it out themselves, and they need a support system to help them figure it out and give them time to figure it out. And that's kind of what this first verse is implying, at least to me. And you brought up that good point that really that's what it does.
It also kind of occurs to me that, Prince is known for having multiple meanings in a single line of lyrics, right? I think about with the phrase, she's always in my hair, or the sentence, she's always in my hair. I can also envision someone playing with his hair, right? Affectionately, gently being there and playing with his, so something like that too, it takes on even more of that, gentle, loyal, steady presence, right? I can hear that in it as well.
Yeah, and if that's true, you certainly don't just let anybody do that.
Right. It's a very intimate thing.
Exactly. That's really kind of held for just like the significant others or the closest of friends. And yeah, I mean, the fact that she's a woman doesn't hurt. I mean, I don't think that Prince's best male friend would be allowed to play in his hair, but nevertheless, maybe, I don't know, but I don't see, Andre Simone playing around in Prince's hair at any point. So the fact that if that's another alternate thought about this chorus, the line, she's always in my hair, you're right. It does speak a lot to closeness and a level of trust and intimacy that really good friends, whether or not they're intimate physically or not, is not even that relevant, I guess. Okay, so then the chorus is just she's always in my hair. I mean, it's he just repeats it and he sings it a couple different ways and repeats my hair, so then you just kind of get that chorus to repeat the last line of the verse, and no additional lyrics in the chorus. It's just a way to kind of reiterate the point and reiterate the title of the song and get some more really kind of cool musical aspects. He sings it kind of in a higher register. Like he goes upwards in his register as he sings the line, "She's always in my hair." D'Angelo does a really good version of this song.
Yes.
From the late 90s. I think it was on the Scream 2 soundtrack. And yeah, I mean, I normally, covers of Prince songs tend to just be like, okay, it's fine. But, the D'Angelo's version is really good. It's got like this really kind of more rock and roll vibe to it with a strong like funk in it as well, like a rock and funk type version of the song. And D'Angelo's vocals in the cover really excel with this song, the way he's able to like stretch the lines and really just belt it out, in a way that maybe Prince doesn't even really do that much in this song. He kind of keeps the vocals pretty tame. You don't get a lot of Prince-isms in this song in particular, I think. He doesn't sing it in his high register. He doesn't do falsetto. He doesn't have a lot of screams. I mean, there's always a little bit of something, some embellishments in just about every Prince song, but he sings it pretty evenly keeled throughout, though.
He does. He's got some vocal techniques that you don't hear in a lot of other songs. Like he does a lot of like scooped notes, glissando, that sort of thing. And I'm with you on D'Angelo's cover. I'm pretty snobby and protective of covers of Prince tunes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't usually like them, but this one, I think D'Angelo just nailed it. It's really, really good.
Yeah, that's right. The last episode we did, The Beautiful Ones, we briefly talked about Mariah Carey's cover of the song. Yeah, you'll never hear me say that Mariah's version is better or equal. Okay, so then the second verse of the song is, "Whenever I feel like not too great at all, whenever I'm all alone, and even if I hit the wrong notes, she's always in my boat. She's always there, telling me how much she cares. She's always in my hair." So I really like that first line, "whenever I feel like not too great at all," because it's just, it sounds awkward when I'm reading it, but he makes it sound effortless, when he sings that line. And it's just, I don't know, it's just very casual. It's just like a very casual phrase. Like it's something that somebody says very casually. So to write that down as a lyric, when oftentimes, you'd almost self-correct. Like if you're writing a line like, "whenever I feel like not too great at all," you typically, writers would want to correct that and just like, "whenever I don't feel too great," or "whenever I don't feel great." And you don't really write it the way that you're saying it. But in this verse, in this line, he writes it and sings it exactly how it's, like somebody casually talking to somebody else or describing an emotion. Like, "how do you feel?" "I don't know, like not too great." That's what people say, but oftentimes that doesn't get written down that way. What else did you see in the second verse, or anything that pop out to you that you liked?
A couple things. One, when you were mentioning the "whenever I feel like not too great at all," it makes it match the first verse, right? When he starts with "whenever I feel like," that "whenever I feel like" phrase. So that's pretty clever. The other thing that stands out to me in this verse is that, talking about "she's always in my boat," this was the 1983 version of what we would come to know as a ride or die,
Mm-hmm.
right? No matter what goes wrong, there's a storm, the waves are splashing all around, whatever. She's in the boat, like not on the shore yelling, "hey, be careful," but in my boat with me. And I love that particular line. If I make mistakes, and here's something interesting too, when he says "whenever I'm all alone." So that to me says when I'm by myself, part of her is still with me. She's still in the boat with me.
Yeah.
Which, speaks to the being in his head, right? Being in his hair, whatever you want to say. That her influence and her supportive voice is there even when he feels alone or is in fact alone.
Yeah, interesting, because you can also think about that line, "whenever I'm all alone," as talking about, his current relationship status. So
Mm.
Prince was at this time as widely kind of known was a serial dater. Yeah, I mean, he had a lot of girlfriends bouncing around between women. He usually had like one girl that was kind of like his main girlfriend at the time, and I guess late '83. I don't even know who that was. This was before Susanna, but after Vanity, so maybe he was between main squeezes at this time. Or maybe this is, he and Sheila were working together around this time too. So I don't know, but I'm not here to speculate on his love life. But, the Whenever I'm All Alone also can tells me a little bit like when I'm between girlfriends or when I don't have that person that's, number one and on my list, she's still going to be there. And all alone, meaning I'm not dating anybody, I can still always rely on Jill to be there for me in whatever ways that I need her for. And so sometimes, I mean, I hate to say it, but is it also like she's always kind of there for me in ways more than just emotional support? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think that there's probably a little bit of that as well, and we'll get to another line later in the song that you start to wonder, like, God, did she? If I'm listening to this song and I'm hearing some of these lines, do I think it's flattering, some of these lines, or do I think maybe I'm not being treated the way that I deserve to be treated if I'm this important to this person? So up to this point, it's all good, but as we kind of touched on earlier, like, maybe there's some things in here that could be perceived as not so great, not too great at all, even. So
Nice.
I think, yeah, I mean, it's just an interesting song because on the surface, it says one thing, but digging a little bit deeper, you start to think. And also, I mean, granted, we have the luxury of decades of Prince biographies and Jill's accounts and other people's accounts of what was going on at that time, whether it's luxury or whether it actually maybe a little bit harms our perception of this song. That it is what it is, but we're privy to things that maybe, or not maybe, most people weren't privy to in 1985 when the song came out. So we have a little more knowledge about stuff that we can then project into the song's lyrics. Whether or not we should or not, it's impossible not to do, I think.
And everyone hears things in their own life context too, right? So we even read into them, like I mentioned in the beginning, our own experience that gives it certain color and perspective.
Yeah. And I do like that even if I hit the wrong notes, she's always in my boat. So hitting the wrong notes, once again, just like, other lines in the song, can really be perceived as more than one thing. Like, she's always in my hair could mean literally or figuratively. Hitting the wrong notes could also be, thought of literally and figuratively as well. So being a singer, you could hit some wrong notes on occasion, or just wrong notes, meaning like not a great decision, maybe not the right choice for that moment. So it's kind of just, a good way of making a line have multiple meanings based off of the fact that it's, there's actual literal things that Prince does that can make that line work, not just figuratively. Like if you and I say we hit the wrong note on that, we're not talking about singing,
Right, exactly.
We're not musicians. We don't sing. So obviously nobody's going to think that we hit the wrong notes in a song that we sung. But when Prince says it, it goes a different direction.
I've always loved the synth stab on that phrase too, specifically on the word notes. It's not technically a wrong note. That makes me laugh, but it's different from anything else in that verse. Yeah,
good point. Good point. Okay, so then the chorus is the same again. So, it's just, he repeats, she's always in my hair. And we get to another verse. And this is an interesting verse. Prince does that. Those third verses tend to deviate from the structure that had already been previously established in the song. And so in the third verse, he says, maybe I'll marry her. Maybe I won't. Maybe I will not. Let me tell you, And I think in the back then, or there's a backing vocal, even if I was a gigolo.
Hmm.
If I was a gigolo all my life, she'd still be there, telling me just how much she really cares. She's always in my hair. So we've got an echo going on with the maybe I'll marry her, maybe I won't. Those lines get echoed behind them. Just Prince's own voice. It's not somebody else's voice. It's not like a backing vocal by Wendy and Lisa or even Jill for that matter. So these these lines, it's like I don't know how to take it. Maybe I'll marry her, maybe I won't. It's like if I'm singing that to somebody, am I supposed to? How am I supposed to take that? How if I'm Jill, how am I supposed to take those lines? Like you love me enough to keep me around, and then you tease me by saying maybe I'll marry you, but then you take it back. Maybe I won't. I don't know. So
And then
I
he
guess
says it again, maybe I will not, like he emphasizes
maybe
the
I will
won't.
not. Yeah, exactly. Not maybe I will not. I will not. Is the ultimate answer. But in 1983, late 1983, yeah, I think maybe the sentiment was nice. Maybe she's this close to me. We're this close that marriage is actually something I considered or even thought about. But maybe it's a big joke too. Maybe, and I'm saying maybe a lot too, just like he does in this verse. But it could also be a joke. Like maybe she's already in on the joke. It's like, maybe I'll marry a Jill, and she's like, yeah, fuck you, Prince, you won't marry me. I mean, we don't know. We don't know if it's she was in on it and she just finds it humorous, or if it's hurtful, like if she really cared about it. I keep going back to her character in Purple Rain, how much she loved the kid. You could see it on her face, and he never really talks to her or pays much attention to her. And I know that did not mirror Prince and Jill's real life friendship and relationship. But sometimes it makes me wonder, like, is he kind of using her a little bit, like walking all over, like stringing her along? Maybe stringing her along is the right or more appropriate phrase. And that's not a great thing to do. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
I recall reading an interview, I don't remember when, but where Jill talks about this specifically, and that line, maybe I'll marry her, maybe I won't, that was the sticking point for her. She said that, that Prince basically offered this song to her as an apology, and she was like, really? Maybe I'll marry her? Like, you think that's an apology? Like, I really want to hear that, And he was like, what? I thought you'd like the song. And she was like, really? Maybe? You think I'm going to like the word maybe? So she heard it like we did, right?
Okay.
Like, we're going through the first couple, oh, this is really cool. And then maybe I won't. What? Where did that come from? Right.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
So yeah, she said that he offered this as, an apology, an olive branch sort of thing. He, I guess, intended for it to be received positively, and she heard that part too, that we did.
Well, what's funny is that even if he got that reception from her, like, once again, we don't get the impression that Jill held back when giving Prince her opinion of the song, or at least this part of the song, but he never changed it. It's not like oh, whoops, I missed the mark on that one. I intended this to be, kind of really playful and fun, and like you said, an olive branch, also an apology. Oh, it didn't really resonate that way with you? Okay, maybe I'll fix the lyrics or change the lyrics. No, he didn't.
Nope.
he just left it. So I don't know, but anytime I hear maybe I'll marry her, maybe I won't, it seems kind of like a shitty thing to do, or shitty thing to say to me.
If you're trying to apologize to someone, you might not put that line in.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe that's why I added the little self-editorial where I thought maybe Jill was in on it and she thought it was funny, just because why else would he leave it in if it was hurtful? Okay, so, per the account that she gave, that really wasn't the case. So it is what it is. She had to accept it the way it was written because he didn't change it.
Yeah, she said, I think it was in the same interview, or maybe one around the same time, that she really wasn't a huge fan of the song. She didn't really like it, and I don't know if her opinion has since changed, right? With time and context and all that, but yeah, from what Jill described, it definitely was not received in the way that he thought it would be.
Sometimes you get a bullseye, and sometimes you don't hit the dartboard at all.
Sometimes you hit the wrong notes, right?
Sometimes you hit the wrong notes, exactly. So it certainly, that third verse, I think, is, for those of us on the outside listening, it's memorable, and it certainly, makes people think about the song a bit, from a different level, more than just like, oh, how sweet, or what a nice sentiment. Maybe if I was a gigolo all my life, she'd still be there. It's like, really? You're jumping to some conclusions here that I don't know if you have the ability to do. Like, can you just assume that? I mean, if she did care for him, and he never did propose, and he never did make her his number one, you think are you sure that she's going to stick by you for the rest of your life, if that's the way that, you kind of frame your relationship? So if they're just platonic friends, yeah, then the answer is yes. But you also don't sleep with platonic friends,
right?
Generally. So there was some really blurry lines being drawn at that time that kind of messed things up for that to actually happen. If Prince never did really make her number one, decided to be a gigolo, would she always be there? Maybe, but I think at that point it was too late. I think there was probably some things that happened behind the scenes, and some real emotion behind there to almost make that impossible. And time proved us right. I mean, they didn't stay best buds forever.
Yeah, and Jill said in interviews years later, and there are other people that have expressed the same sentiment, that Prince's love and his true marriage was his music. So no one was ever going to be number one. It was always going to be, second place to the music. And, no woman was going to compete, with his music. And I've heard that from other musicians as well, who are being completely honest. So, I think that, who knows what conversations they had, right?
Mm-hmm.
They may have had a conversation about, what if I was a player my whole life? Would you be here? I don't know. Maybe they did. It sounds like kind of an arrogant thing to say, like, I could do whatever I want. You'd still be around. Maybe they talked about it. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. But the fact is, and Jill said this herself in so many words, that he was married to his music, and, she was never going to be, or no one else was either, going to be number one.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, and I think that is probably the best way to kind of sum up, any kind of conversation about Prince and relationships with women, especially in the 80s, when he was just, he didn't have, at least to our understanding, wasn't thinking about a family quite yet, maybe still in his early to mid-20s. A lot of those things that he was singing about in the 90s, about settling down and having a baby and getting married and blah, 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 that was to come. That wasn't necessarily Prince's mindset in 1983. We didn't get a lot of songs, at least, that talked about that. Whether or not it was in his head or not, we don't know, but all we can tell is that he didn't have a lot of songs that spoke about that.
At least not in any serious way, right? We had Let's Pretend We're Married. We had, yeah. Beautiful One saying, if we got married, would that be cool? Like, yeah. Just sort of casually flirting with the idea, but not a serious consideration of it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody listens to Let's Pretend We're Married and thinks like, oh, wow, Prince is really, really into the institute of marriage. This right. is like, there's no ulterior motive with that at all, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
He's not talking about the weekly meal planning and,
yeah,
that sort of thing.
The mundane aspect of it, yes.
Exactly.
Okay, well, then after the third verse, it's just a chorus again. She's always in my hair. And then he goes back and repeats the first verse again. It's the same lines. Listen, whenever I feel like giving up, whenever my sunshine turns to rain, whenever my hopes and dreams are aimed in the wrong direction, she's always there telling me just how much she cares. Telling me she's always in my hair. And so it's just a kind of a full circle back to the beginning of the song with the first verse again. So really, that's the lyrics to "She's Always in My Hair." I mean, it's not my personal favorite B-side of the '80s or in general. I like it a lot. It's a really good song, and I enjoy listening to it whenever it comes on. But I don't know. I mean, uh, anytime somebody else does another version of the song, and I'm like, ooh, that's really strong. Either it says two things: either that I think that person just kicked ass, which D'Angelo did, or the original version I was not like completely married to, pun intended, because when I have an official version in my head is like the definitive version of a song. No other version, no matter how technically good it is, can hold a candle to it. Like anybody does another version of Erotic City or 17 Days, I'm just thinking, nah, next.
Right.
But with
Exactly.
this song, I think that there was room for improvement in the song. I think there was room for interpretation or for some, more unique aspects of the song to be kind of fleshed out and developed. I think there was room in the song for it to be improved on, which is a really rare thing, I think, for a Prince song, because most people just say that they're perfect as they are, and there's no room for improvement. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the song overall, just without just talking about the lyrics, just in general?
So when I first heard it, I was like, this doesn't sound like anything else I've ever heard from Prince. Like it had, you know, the the melody was different. I haven't analyzed it harmonically or anything, but it just sounded different to me. And because of that, I was intrigued by it. I wouldn't say that I loved it from the beginning, but I was intrigued. And then over time, I've really come to like this tune a lot, um, more and more over time. I will say, though, that I think that the fact that it sounded so different lent itself very well to D'Angelo's sort of uh, boho soul funk sensibility.
Hmm.
It, I could picture him in my head performing it when I heard. I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely a D'Angelo. That fits him really well. Um, so yeah, that's sort of the take that I had on it. I like this song more and more as time goes on, not just lyrically, but overall. And there's live versions of it that are incredible too, and I think that it really it breathes a little bit more, and you hear more of that. Well, depending on when and where it was performed, the rock edge, which I think is really nice with this tune in particular.
Yeah, D'Angelo, Andre 3000, they have like that same kind of sensibility of the late '90s, early 2000s that really lend well to singing either a cover of this song or similar versions or similar styles of this song. Thematically, this song doesn't fit on Purple Rain at all. It doesn't seem to fit on Around the World in a Day. So it was a B-side. It was destined to be a B-side because it is so different and it doesn't really match the tone of. It's not poppy enough for Purple Rain. It doesn't have like the Linn drum machine sound that was really kind of framed 1999 in Purple Rain, and the guitar is there, but it's not theatrical guitar. It's just more like serves the song guitar. And then Around the World in a Day, it just, I mean, I don't know. It's just there's too much going on in that album for this to really fit, and it would have been like one of the oldest songs for the album if it was actually included on the record, with most of that album being recorded in '84, and this was a late '83 song, so it was almost like it was too dated. It didn't really match the theme of what Prince was going for with Around the World in a Day. The instrumentation wasn't experimental enough, or just didn't have whatever edge that it needed to make that album. So I think a B-side is a perfect place for it, and I really enjoy the song quite a bit as well. It's just one of those songs that I think can be interpreted and improved on, or at least interpreted and done in a different way that's equally appealing, where most Prince songs I can't say that. So I guess that's my final word on it.
Yeah, I loved, there's a version of it on the Raven to the Year 2000 video that's really good. And then I also liked some of the live versions that I've heard and seen in like Third Eye Girl era, 2013, 2014 type time frame. And, again, that rock edge really comes through. And I think that's what this song may have needed. I think it just, brings out the best in this particular tune.
Yeah, this was a song that he did play quite late into his career live. Not so much even when it was first out, or even during the 80s on any of those 80s tours. Didn't play it on the Purple Rain tour. Didn't play it on the Parade tour, Sign of the Times. It was, he pulled it out later, like in the 90s and in the 2000s, and maybe by that time, he had the live band that he wanted and felt like could really elevate the song beyond its recorded version. And maybe that's why some of the live versions are the versions that we consider some of the best out there of this song, because it's taken to the next level. The bassist was already there, the bass version of the song was already there, and then he had the band to take it somewhere else that makes it even more interesting. And so, yeah, that's a good point. The whole live version of this song is, you could probably listen to multiple versions that you could find on YouTube or wherever, and really get something different out of each one, depending on who his band was, or who was in his band at the time. So
exactly.
Yeah, very cool. All right, Leslie. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. Do you have any place that you'd like to share with listeners about where they could find you or say hi?
Sure. On Twitter, I am Malenga, Malenga. On Instagram, I think today my username is Leslie_3121. I change it periodically. It's partly print stuff, but it's partly miniature pictures of my miniature pinchers and Peloton thing. It's not just a Prince account. It's pretty eclectic. So, but yeah, feel free to friend me, add me, and especially if you want to talk about Prince, I'm always down for that.
Cool. This has been the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. I've been your host, Jason Brenninger. You can get a hold of me through the Press Rewind Pod moniker on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I recently launched a Discord for the podcast, so look for the Discord invite link in the show notes, and I also have it posted on my social media. So if you're interested in chatting about Prince with other Prince fans, friends, whatever you want to call us, we're all together I'm trying to get a bunch of us together on Discord. So I'd love to have anybody who is interested in that platform, interested in that app, to find me there, find us there, and talk about Prince. That's what that is all about. And I guess until next time, thank you and goodbye.